What is up, everybody? This is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJawProjects.com, and today we're going to talk about some issues, some big issues. We're going to get deep and dark and like really dark. Like, we're going to talk about how things really go here with the comic industry and things like that. And to do that, I need a very special guest to help me out with that. And that special guest, it it's the only Lucifer that I can say I know and love. There's not. I don't like the other one. So to get into it, Mr. Fue Storm, also known as Lucifer Storm, how the devil art thou?
Oh, you took my line before I could, man. I'm good, man. I'm good. And by the way, that other Lucifer, he's a fraud. There's only one Lucifer, the original, except no substitutes. That other guy, he's my evil twin. Fuck him.
All right, cool beans. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but to me, I don't know, like there's some crazy stuff in comics, that happen. And, actually, before I get to that, real quick, I just want to mention there's something cool that I think some mutual friends of ours, or sort of mutual friends,
Okay.
Jason Alexander, also known as Fogbreaker Studios,
Yes.
and Aaron Guzman, also known as Monkey Wrench, all over the place. They have
Yes.
this cool thing that they're doing, the Vault mini
Sweet.
comic. It's every month they work. Jason works on writing, and Aaron does like the art and stuff, and they do these like mini comics and stuff. And
Awesome.
they're pretty amazing. Like, I don't know, like Aaron's an amazing artist, and Fogbreaker Studios, aka Jason, he's like got so many cool ideas. And I don't know, I'm just loving these things as they come out, and there's different series and stuff. And like, to me, that's like the essence of like what I love to see in comics is these mini
Yeah.
comics and just kind of getting your ideas out and stuff. So there's a link down in the description if you guys want to check that out. But
Yeah.
other than that, there's another link that I think is pretty cool too, that we're gonna check out. Let's get into it right away. Actually, while
Yeah.
we're
Let's not waste any time.
let's see. I didn't have the screen share set up, but it will be in a second. Here we go. So speaking about satanic comics and things like that, I mean, honestly, aren't all comics satanic anyways? But
Depends on who you speak to, doesn't it? I mean, in the eyes of some people, they certainly are.
so cool. So let's talk about this. Lady Satan, an angel in a killer's dress. What the heck is this thing?
You want to know what this is, man? This is a very dark revenge tale that blends elements of the thriller and horror genre along with a noir aesthetic in order to create a very haunting character-driven story told across 130 plus pages. This is pure outlaw comics.
Nice. Yeah, and I mean, you and I have been we've been talking about this thing and a bunch of your other ideas, but this one in particular for a long time, man. It's pretty cool that it's finally coming to fruition here.
Yeah, man, I'm really pleased with it. Like every day working on this book is just an absolute blessing. Like there's not a day. I don't spend a day where I wake up, I do it, and then go, oh, why did I waste the time? I always get to the end of that day and I'm like, yes, it's happening. It's coming to fruition. My little girl's growing up and her story's finally being told.
It's not only a blessing, it's a hell of a blessing.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I like that. I'm going to steal that.
I love this panel. Like, this just like sets the mood right here. It's just
Oh,
like,
hell yeah.
I mean, especially knowing what the comic's about and stuff, I'm like, yeah, this is a good one.
That was one of my favorites to work on.
Wow. And then this one it's a little disturbing, but we'll keep scrolling.
Good.
Speaking about disturbing, man, you're somebody. Oh wow, look at these panels. I don't think I've seen these ones fully done. That is so cool.
Thanks, man.
I can't wait to get this thing. You guys got to check this out. Obviously, it's on Indiegogo. We're here. I'm going to put a link in the chat, but there is a link in the description as well. There's also a link to Fue, aka Lucifer's YouTube channel, which is really cool. There's tons of, I mean, if you want to know about writing comics, like I personally don't know of any other channel out there on YouTube that is really goes into depth with it, specifically on comics too, as much as Lucifer's or I'm gonna call you Fue. You're Fue.
Yeah, go for it, man. It's cool.
as Fue here. You got some really cool videos on writing comics, man.
Thanks, man. I'm planning on doing some more. I've been kind of updating some of them, make them a bit more fresh and stuff. And yeah, I guess I do go in depth. I prefer to call it obsessive, but each to their own at the end of the day. And every little bit helps. I'm always getting messages from people saying like, "Man, your videos like they really help me out because they really help to bring my story to life," and that's just so fucking cool. Like that's worth more than the monetization that YouTube can give me.
Yeah, well, there's a lot that's worth more than the monetization YouTube gives us.
Oh, hell fucking yes.
I mean, maybe when we start hitting the millions of subscribers, we'll have a different tune, but I don't know when that's going to happen. So.
One day it'll happen. But until then, I mean, like, just knowing that my videos have helped someone, even if it's just that one person, like that's worth it to me. That's so priceless at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I'm sure you get this. I get tons of comments, from past videos where people are like, "Oh man, that was so helpful." Like,
Yes.
You totally helped me to start working on my comic again. Things like that.
Yeah, man. My favorite ones are the comments that start with "Thank you, Lucifer," and then in brackets, "I never thought I would say that."
That's a good one. I like that. Nice. All right. So, is there what's the tell us a little bit about the rewards and stuff and all that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go into the story first and then let people know about the rewards.
That's the good stuff.
Yeah, man. So, as I mentioned, this is a revenge tale. This is the story of Lucille, who's a stripper from France, or she used to be a stripper, until one day she was abducted to be the star in a snuff film. But she did something that no one else has done. She survived. She survived that trauma, that incredible trauma. And of course, she was very disturbed afterwards. She was broken in not just the physical sense, but the mental and psychological sense and emotional sense as well. And from there, she decided to become a vigilante called Lady Satan. And she's traveled from town to town, shore to shore, taking down big time and small time criminals until one day she finds herself in the UK because she's trying to hunt down the only existing copy of the snuff film that she was in, thinking if I can find it and destroy it, my life can go back to normal. And along the way, she discovers that the man in front of the camera who tortured her and abused her is a high-ranking British police officer who's under investigation from the MI5. And she realizes she's got one chance and one chance only to exact her revenge upon him.
Yeah.
So as you can tell, this book is not for kids, man.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting because I feel like, and also she's not that hard to look at too, which is a good thing. But the interesting thing I think is, like I notice a trend right now, like especially in the indie comics realm. It seems like there's a lot of people doing stuff in the thriller and horror realm these days, and I thought maybe it was just because Halloween was coming, but Halloween's come and gone, and I don't know, it just seems like it's the time for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you take a look at the mainstream like industry, mainstream comics, And the most competitive part of mainstream comics is the superhero genre. You know, that's where it all began, and that's where the mainstream's heart will always be, regardless of what happens. But for some reason, in the indie realm, I think it's because there are a lot of indie creators who when they were growing up, they were thinking, yeah, I'd love to work for Marvel and DC. And then their tastes evolved and they started creating these stories and realized very quickly, oh, Marvel and DC, they're never going to publish what I want to put out there. And all of a sudden they find the indie scene and they're like, this is where my stuff is welcome. I mean, Vertigo is no more. I'm sure Avatar Press is still going, but that's still a hard nut to crack at the end of the day. So they go the indie route because they're like, I've got this horrible, horrific story that I really need to tell people. I really need to disturb someone with this book. So they go to the indies, and the indies is very transgressive. I find it reminds me a little bit of the cinema of transgression movement, which was kind of like a punk filmmaking movement back in the 80s. And they really took it to an extreme because their philosophy was there is no subject that is taboo. Nothing is sacred. We will ruin all of it just to tell a good story. And it feels very similar.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It's really cool to see, the kind of a little bit of a diverse voice in comics. I mean, there's a great history in comics with horror stuff. But it never really has reached a full resurgence, and maybe we're on the tip of that.
I certainly hope so, because the creators out there that are working in the indie community, man, I have not picked up one indie book yet that I've read and then got to the end of it and thought, oh man, why did I get this? Can I still get a refund? They've just been hit after hit after hit, and like you said, majority of them have been horror books. And like recently, a lot of the books that have been going up on Indiegogo and stuff, we've had Russ's Only Death Can Save Us, which I would say is more of a cosmic kind of book, but it's still got that little bit of a horror element to it, a little bit of a cosmic horror element to it, which is really nice. You've got Wally working on Ilsa Dark, which just looks fantastic. That's kind of like your Hammer horror style storytelling. Robert Geronimo working on Wirehead, which is your slasher through and through. And I think he's picked the right time to do that. Von Klaus's Monster MD, which is a bit more of a fun take on the horror genre, but it's still a horror book at heart. Oh man, there's too many cool books to list.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
It is.
We have talked in the past. To be honest, I'm sure that the show that we had together was probably more about writing. But you have talk about a little bit of like kind of your history of your fascination with this genre and some other things that kind of led you to writing a book like this.
Oh man, we're going back to when I was knee high to a grasshopper then.
I just asked that question so I could hear you say that. I love when you say that phrase.
Well, you got it, and it's probably going to turn up again at some point, man. Nice. Yeah, like when I was like about 6-7 years old, I come from a very devout Christian family. Mm-hmm. And my mother was very strict with what I could consume when it came to content and entertainment as a kid, especially as when I was a kid, I was kind of a sensitive kid, and she was always worried if he sees this or listens to this music, it's going to give him nightmares or whatever. She was very overprotective in that sense. But because of being so overprotective, I was that kid that was like, yeah, but why can't I see this? You're telling me that I can't, but you're not giving me a good reason to. So, we would go to the video store, like the Blockbuster or whatever when I was a kid, kind of at the weekends, get something to watch and stuff. And around that age, I was watching classic Doctor Who stuff, which for a lot of kids back then, they would watch it and get nightmares or get freaked out or whatever. And I was like, this is cool. This is awesome. I want some more of this kind of stuff, And it got to this point where every time we went into the video store, I saw the horror section. I was like, that artwork looks cool. I want to try that stuff. And my mother would be like, you're not 18, you're 8. So it's not happening. You're not happening until you're 18. So I would do these stupid things where I'd be like, oh, go on, mum. Let me rent this one. Let me rent Monster Squad. And she'd be like, no. And then I'd be like, oh, but I saw it on TV the other day, keeping my fingers crossed, hoping that she wouldn't figure it out. And she was like, oh, well, if you've seen it before, then sure, fine. Yes, result. So that kind of like kickstarted things. And like I was going to school and like speaking with my friends who like their parents were like, we don't care. You know, if you want to watch Nightmare on Elm Street, you go for it, kind of thing. So like I'd go around their houses and be like, I see you have Halloween and Friday the 13th. Any chance we could watch that? I mean, it is raining outside. This is England after all. You know, and it kind of grew from then. Like when I realized like, oh, there's this cool stuff that people are trying to keep me away from, I wanted more. So as I got older, I was discovering about like things like the video nasty scandal and stuff where our government was banning like horror movies and stuff like that. And that just made me go, oh, I really want to see those. You know? And it just kind of grew from there, and it just became this, I guess, a kind of morbid fascination. And as I grew older, that kind of adapted a little bit, just like not just in horror but also like in music. Like I found myself going to these different genres. Like everyone would be like, oh, only psychos listen to heavy metal, and I'd be like, well, I'm not a psycho and I want to hear it. You know, and like the news going like rap, oh, that's going to turn you into a gang member and stuff. So I'd be like, cool, let's listen to it and see if there's any truth behind that. You know?
Test it.
Yeah, exactly. Test the waters. Like if I'm wrong, oh well. But if I'm right, cool. Then I found something new to enjoy and stuff. It was just that kind of like that rebellious attitude of like, why are people trying to hold me back from stuff? Why not expose me to it and see what happens, rather than deciding like, oh, he only needs to see 5 minutes of Friday the 13th and that's it. He'll be out there with a machete and a hockey mask and stuff. And of course, that stuff never happened. It just never happened. And like, you know, so when I was a teenager, I was doing things like going to the comic book store and I'd be picking up like the latest issue of Spawn and sitting down with that, and like the latest issue of Fangoria, or I'd be like picking up like a bootleg of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or whatever, you know, sitting down with that and listening to like Machine Head and Korn and NWA and stuff, and just having a great time. You know, I always associate that kind of genre of stuff of like, whenever I see like an old school horror movie now, it just reminds me of being that kid that's like, oh, I'm kind of free. I'm sticking my middle finger up at the system. You know, and just going, oh, cool, this stuff's awesome. You know, that like there was something exciting about getting that stuff that your parents are like, no, you can't have this. And then going, haha, little do you know that after you've gone to sleep, I've got a Hellraiser VHS here, and I'm going to enjoy every second of it. And like the only unfortunate thing about that though is like horror's like magic, because like when you're a kid and you see a magician perform, you're just like, wow, that's amazing. I cannot figure out how the magician did that. And then you finally learn how they pulled off their magic trick, and you're like, oh, it's not as impressive. So you're trying to find a magic trick that you can't figure out. And it's the same with horror. Like you start watching all this horror and you're like, oh my God, that scared the shit out of me, or it grossed me out or whatever. And then you get to that point where you're kind of desensitized to it. You still enjoy it, but it's not affecting you the same way. So you're like, man, I wish there was something that little bit harder. You know, just so I could feel like that kid again. And then you start kind of like exploring, like for me at least, I started exploring like extreme horror movies and stuff like that, and that kind of like brought me back into that mold. And one of the things I liked about it was when I was a kid and like I watched The Evil Dead for the first time, it freaked me the hell out. It scared me, and it was this safe scare. But the extreme horror stuff, I would sit down and watch something like August Underground or a Serbian film, and I'd walk away from it feeling horribly disturbed, you know. And there was something comforting about that. Like knowing that this stuff existed to like really test you, kind of thing, test your fortitude and stuff. And I don't know, that just kind of seeped into my storytelling, like not straight away. So it was only kind of like after I read books like Preacher, that I kind of walked away going, oh wow, you can do anything in this medium. Like literally, you can put anything into a comic book. And that's okay. You don't need anyone else's permission. You just need to give yourself that permission. So after reading Preacher, it's like, okay, I give myself permission to take the gloves off when it comes to storytelling. And if a story needs to go to extreme dark places like Lady Satan does, then I'm going to do it. And I'm going to go full hog.
Yeah. That's good though. I mean, that's like it's so refreshing when people do that these days, 'cause with all the political correctness and stuff, as we've talked about before.
Yeah.
And I've even talked to you about it and been like, sometimes I'm not sure, like I almost edit myself, and I always remember you kind of saying, well, not like telling me what to do, because you don't really do that, but you've said about, like, kind of made the argument for people who kind of don't hold back, and at least get it out, and then later you can kind of say, okay, maybe I should even work with an editor or something of some sort, but yeah, I don't know, it's interesting. It's crazy though, because it's like if you keep going, if people, like, horror has this effect, and that kind of stuff has this effect of, like, I've seen this, I've gotten scared this way, now it's not really so great, now I need something more like that. You need that new fix, like where does it end? And maybe it ends at making your own comic.
Yeah, I guess it kind of does, man. Like, because I mean, don't get me wrong, there is some stuff out there that I wouldn't necessarily call horror. I think it falls more into the genre of Mondo, which is kind of like the real life stuff, where basically, like, a lot of filmmakers, they would go to like news channels and be like, is there any footage that you didn't use because it was too extreme to put on TV? Like, because bear in mind, like, a lot of the news teams back then, they're just floating about. Anything that they hear on the police scanner, they film the whole thing. So they could hear that there's someone stood on the edge of a balcony ready to jump, and they turn up to film it thinking, oh, this is going to be a great rescue, and it doesn't end out that way. And the news team are like, we can't broadcast this, but this guy, he'll give us $50 for that footage so he can put it into a compilation video and stuff like that. So to me, that's where it ends, because Mondo, depending on what you get, it's either just grotesque stuff that you really don't need to see, you don't need it in your life, or it's someone presenting a documentary that is tackling really hard to talk about subject matter and going, by the way, if you want to understand how bad this is, here's a flash of that stuff. To me, that's where it ends. When I started exploring that stuff, I was like, you know what, I think I'm cool. I think I'll just go to the fiction stuff rather than this real life stuff.
True, I could see that. So, now that you've, I mean, I've heard of all the different stories that you want to tell, because we've talked in depth about it, and
oh yeah,
they're not all horror. They all have interesting elements, though, and I mean, this isn't even necessarily horror, straight just horror. It's more than that. But you definitely, there's always like some kind of twisted reality, kind of, a lot of times in your stories, and definitely a little taste of the disturbing in a lot of things. And what would you say is, like, since you are somebody who talks a lot about writing and stuff, like, what is, like, maybe some of the techniques you use as far as trying to, I mean, I think it comes out naturally, but I'm sure there's some techniques maybe a little specific to that kind of writing. Can you point anything out like that?
Research is a very important thing. having that natural curiosity when it comes to this kind of stuff, like just being able to ask those questions. Like, this story doesn't exist if I didn't ask myself, if someone called themselves Lady Satan, what hell have they been through in order to justify calling themselves that, to become a vigilante and going down that road? See, there's nothing wrong with a story that's family friendly. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Hey, there's lots of people out there who are making books that are very politically correct, or extremely politically correct, you could say. And I don't want that stuff to go away. I want it to exist. But there has to be the counterbalance to that as well. And that's where people like myself come in and say, hey, you enjoy that stuff? That's great. But we need to put something else out there, because there's more people like myself that want to explore that stuff. And, I think the main part of being able to write stories like this is you have to sit down with yourself and say, I clearly have some demons, and the healthiest way to deal with them beyond therapy is to put them onto the page and kind of problem solve with them on the page. Because I've met so many people out there who, they've got their traumas, they've got their demons, and they're scared of facing that stuff because they don't know what the outcome's going to be. And when you write this kind of stuff, you don't just have to accept that, you've got some demons to deal with. You've got to be prepared to look those fucking things in the eye and say, not today. I'm not your bitch today. You're my bitch. and go through that little dark journey, because you only come out of it stronger at the end of the day. So I would say that's a really important part of it. As far as writing techniques, it's going to sound so fucking stupid and so simple, because it's something that costs you nothing and people already know what it is already without even realizing it. And it's just the simple thing of go for a walk. Just go for a walk, get some fresh air. It's amazing what that does with your mind, like what it unlocks in there, and you just let shit happen. Beyond that, it's the same stuff you would use for any other story. You're not thinking to yourself, oh yeah, but kids have got to read this, or kids have to be able to access it. There's lots of stuff out there for kids, and that's awesome. That is absolutely fantastic. I have no doubt that at some point I'm going to end up writing a book that will be an all ages book, or it will be suitable for teenagers and above. But I always approach each story with, let it be what it needs to be. That story, that character, it's going to tell you how far you need to go, and you need to trust it. You need to trust every single part of it. And just let it go. Just let it happen.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I can definitely feel you on the taking a walk thing. Taking a break in general. I mean, just the other day, I was working on some music, and I was into it most of the day, and I'm just doing it, and then I was like, I'm just tired, and I need to do something, and I went out or whatever, and I was able to, it is it's almost like the moment I walk out the door, things start to clear up. Because when you're in that instance, you're like, I want to be productive. I want to make something happen here. And it might be you might be in a moment of frustration where nothing's working, and it's you think that the only way to get through is to keep trying, but you just sometimes have to step away. And it's amazing how that can help. And it'll actually cause you to focus better when you come back to it.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I mean, before COVID hit, it was a daily thing for me to be like, okay, I've got up, I've done some writing, or I've done something, and now I'm gonna go for a walk. And the first place I like to hit is my local cemetery and just walk through there, which once again makes me sound like a real morbid asshole, but there is something really comforting and calm about that. And the amount of times I've just been walking through there, just not thinking about a thing, and then all of a sudden that idea comes into my head, and it's either something that's just naturally happened, or I've been looking at the gravestones and stuff and paying attention to people's names and asking myself, well, what's their story? Like, this is the end of their story. But what led to this end? Like I said, that natural curiosity. You walk past a wall that's got some graffiti on it. It can say anything. But what pushed that person to think, I need to write this message or draw this message in spray paint or marker pen on this wall or on this person's window, kind of thing? There's a story behind everything. You just need to find the one that captures you the most, that just does not leave your head, and then work on that. Because like I said, it's writing a book, especially one like this, can be really cathartic. It can be very therapeutic. And there are lots of people out there who have problems and they don't feel that anyone's listening to them, that no one's giving them the chance. They're just looking at them and going, well, you're clearly evil, or you're clearly an asshole, or whatever. And they don't think, man, if I just put this down in a book, or if I picked up a guitar and just like made a piece of music, then all your problems go away, because finally someone's listening to you. It just happens to be yourself. Instead, they see no hope. So what do? They start taking drugs. They start drinking heavily, or they pick up a gun and they go and do something really fucking stupid. And a lot of that stuff could be stopped if people just took that bit of time to have a bit of compassion, or if that person realized you can do something. It may take you a bit of time, it may take you a bit of practice, but sit down, work on a book, work on some music, work on some stand-up comedy, work on a dance routine, whatever is going to get you through it. That's the much better option.
Yeah. So you're saying that, if you want to do good things in the world and not be a jerk, write a satanic book about
Yeah.
Lady Satan.
Yeah, absolutely. Write about a stripper who survived a snuff film, or start a death metal band. There's loads of options. Get a sock puppet, open a new bank account, whatever.
I know somebody who's got a pretty interesting sock puppet. Yeah, it's interesting. I think if you go to Flay's channel, you might see some of that.
Yes. And then you'll be like, okay, his therapist is not doing a good job.
Hopefully it doesn't show up here.
No, it's all right. By British law, he's not allowed to show up on the live stream unless there are two handlers, and you don't count as a handler, you count as a victim in that public's eyes, so you're safe.
All right, awesome. We got a comment here from Zachary. Brandon Scott's got a book. Are you actually going to write a book or just talk about it? It's a pretty motivating read.
That's a dope title.
Yeah. Now I know for a fact, have read many a book on writing. Some of them, maybe most of them, not so great, and some of them are good. Do you have any recommendations of some of the good ones?
Yes, I do. Excuse me. I'm trying to remember the author's name, but there's a book called Into the Woods, which it mostly talks about structure and stuff, but it does go beyond that and really explores the depths of storytelling, especially within structure. It's absolutely wonderful book. Could read it over and over again quite easily. Pretty much any book by Jason Scott Bell. He focuses on writing novels, but pretty much all that stuff, it applies to writing comics as well. And he's got a wonderful talent of like really simplifying stuff so that it's easy to digest and easy to understand. And you can get through one of his books in like one sitting. You can sit down and then 2 hours later, you've got to the end of that book and you feel like you have gone to school, anything by him is so worth getting hold of. And like I said, Into the Woods is another great one. Beyond that, I pretty much say those are the main ones you need. Although there is also The Writer's Journey by Christopher Vogler and the Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell. Like, a lot of people go to that book, which is absolutely fine, understandably so. But The Writer's Journey by Christopher Vogler is kind of like an alternative to the Joseph Campbell monomyth. and they work just as well. So yeah, those books, if people really want to get serious about writing, whether it be for novels, comics, screenplays, or whatever, those books should be like Bibles to writers.
Yeah. Cool. I've read none of them.
We can change that. There's still time.
I know. I have downloaded The Hero with a Thousand Faces on Audible, and I know
Nice.
that the reason I haven't read it is because I know a lot of the concepts, and I also know,
Yeah.
like you said, Vogler and others who have kind of boiled that down to a little bit more of its easier essence. So I kind of
Yeah.
have followed that, but I do want to read it. I just know it's kind of a tome.
Yeah, it is kind of a tome, and I find like a lot of people when they want to learn how to write, they don't want one book that explains everything. They want one book that focuses on a certain subject. So great little segue here, little bit of self promotion. A lot of people want to focus on dialogue, so they just want a book on dialogue. And funnily enough, there's an audiobook version of the book that I wrote, writing dialogue for comic books and graphic novels. It's over on my YouTube channel. So you can go listen to that and you'll learn a hell of a lot about writing dialogue for comics.
Yeah, that is true. And I got a nice little preview of that before it came out, and it's good. It's a good book, and it goes quick. Again,
Yeah.
like you said with this other guy, it's an easy read that you can revisit, and it certainly won't take you long to revisit it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's the type of thing. Dialogue is kind of the type of thing that often ends up being a little tricky for people. But I don't know, it's kind of weird because if you're a prose writer, I feel like you focus on it more. If you're a comic creator, it's almost an afterthought generally.
I'd agree with that. Whenever I've written like novels and stuff, whilst you're writing the book, you're just letting the dialogue flow, and it comes quite frequently. Whereas when I'm writing a comic or a graphic novel, dialogue is the last thing that I write. I'm spending more time on the beats of the story, how to present them from panel to panel, page to page, the panel descriptions. And sometimes I get way too verbose with panel descriptions. But when I'm the jackass who's illustrated the book, that doesn't matter. All those notes help. And then, yeah, like I said, it's literally, I don't really think about dialogue until that third final draft, when I know that all the panels are in just the right places and I've worked out the page turns and everything and how the book's going to end. That's the point where I go, right, well, I need to figure out when the characters are going to talk, what they're going to say, where narration should be. And, that's probably like the shortest part of writing a book for me.
Yeah, interesting. Let's see, what else was there? I had something else, but then I got a little bit distracted by the comment section. I did put Lucifer. It's so funny. It's hard for me to say Lucifer.
Right. Do you want to know what the weird thing is? Since I started using Lucifer as a pen name, which has done me wonders, I do have to say, it really has opened up people to try and it's amazing.
A hell of a blessing.
Hell yeah. It's amazing how your name can really affect how an audience perceives you, and it's something that goes into that instant judgment of whether they'll take a book or not. Like the amount of times I've met people and they've been like, oh, so what's your name? I say it's Fway, and they think you're a fucking kid, aren't you? You're just a big kid, but instead of an action figure in your hand, it's a bottle of beer, kind of thing. And it just puts them off. But since using Lucifer, that's really worked in my favor. I find that more people are willing to kind of listen and give my stuff a chance, which is absolutely great. Plus, most people can pronounce Lucifer or spell Lucifer, whereas Fway, it's very different. But the weird part of it is, every now and then I hear someone call me Lucifer, but they know that I'm Fway. That's how they met me. So it's weird hearing them say that. But when it's people who haven't met me before and they call me Lucifer, it's like, yeah, that's right, that's me. I knew it was a crime, but I did it anyway. You know?
Well, that's good that you're fitting into it well, because I remember having the conversations about it.
Yeah. When I first thought about it, and it was like, oh, I don't know, this is either a really good idea or a really fucking stupid one, or both.
Yeah, you never know, but I think it's worked out well.
Yeah, I think so too, man. I think so.
Totally. Let's see. I don't know. Like, I guess let's talk about kind of the process of how you came to this particular story. But like, you kind of talked a little bit about that, but also like, I guess there's two things I'd like to talk about. Is one, the fact that Lady Satan isn't it's not an original 100% original thing. This is derived from some
Yeah.
older stuff.
Yeah,
I
I've
guess
kind of
talk
done
about
a
that a
Neil
little bit.
Gaiman.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those of you out there who are watching this and don't know, when you go looking at public domain characters, there is so much cool stuff, and a lot of them, it's the case of the character's cool, the stories kind of suck, kind of thing. And lots of people, they always dip into the public domain. Like I was talking to Von Klaus the other day, and he mentioned that he had dipped into the public domain and he had found a character called Lady Satan and he started doing something with it. And then he found me and was like, hold on, is this the same Lady Satan? And as I explained to him, I was going through this period where I was like, okay, I want to explore the public domain. So I picked out a few characters that I wanted to work with. And one of them happened to be this character, Lady Satan, who back then in the 1940s, you would have one strip where she was like a spy who was killing Nazis. And then the next strip, she was a witch who was fighting werewolves. And that made me realize no one really knew what to do with this character. So that kind of gives me a blank slate to work from. So I thought to myself, what kind of character would I make that would be called Lady Satan? And then I had that question of like, what hell do you go through in order to justify being called Lady Satan? So I was like, okay, I'll keep what I feel fits my kind of character, my kind of story, and I'll let go of the rest. And pretty much the only thing that fit was the name. That was it. Everything else, I was like, gone, get out of here. I don't need you. I'll just take the name and do something with that. And like I said, I kind of, in that respects, I kind of did what Neil Gaiman did with Sandman, where he was like, okay, it's just the only thing in common with it is it shares a name. But I wanted to honor that golden age character, even though Lucille is not that golden age character. She is something completely new and completely different. So I put it into her backstory that, when she was a kid, she was getting bullied a lot at school. She was getting bullied by her parents as well. She wanted to escape. So she dived into things like fiction. And along the way, she found comics. And her favorite comic at the time was a certain golden age character called Lady Satan. So when she became a stripper and started getting successful with that, she wanted to have a stage name. And she decided, you know what, I'm going to honor that great comic book character that got me here. I'm going to call myself Lady Satan. And then when she became this vigilante and went through the snuff film ordeal and all that, she was like, I'm Lady Satan. That's it. This is my name now.
Yeah. That's, I always love that how you kind of ended up connecting that anyways. And it's a cool backstory for sure. Let's see. We got this question here I wanted to get to from Ryan Rahale. So I probably
Hey,
not saying
Ryan, how
that
you
right.
doing, man?
But yeah, let's see. Here we go. This is interesting. How to make how to make a comic that has a philosophical thoughts on it for a beginner. Do you have any philosophical thoughts in your book?
Yes, yes. Funnily enough, it's not.
Satanism. No.
Oh, of course. It's not the first scene of the book, which you guys have seen a little bit of. That's kind of like a prologue. It's the main scene that kicks in. We have some narration from Lucille, And the first bit of the narration says, people are not haunted by the dead. They are haunted by the living and the memories that the living leave them with, which I think is a very philosophical thought. And funnily enough, people have asked, some people who have seen like little previews and stuff, they've been like, where the hell did you get that from? And I was like, therapy. That's where it came from, therapy. So yeah, what I would suggest is for someone who wants to do something that's a little more philosophical and you're just starting out as a writer, rather than thinking of the character and their story first, is think about what it is you want to say. What is the philosophical thought that you want to focus on the most? And then think about what character embodies that philosophical thought. And then from there, you can start building the story and then finally the world that they exist in. That would be my main piece of advice. Spend that time sitting down and thinking about that philosophical thought first. Pick one. Don't pick several. Just pick one. When you're writing a story, especially for comics, I'll go back to the magic analogy. When you pick up like a tome of a novel, that, you know, that's like seeing a stage magician who's like going to do an hour and a half show, and they're doing all these different tricks and some of them connect. And there's always that one trick where they go, oh no, I've messed it up. Oh, what a shame. And then about 10 tricks later, they're like, haha, you thought I messed it up earlier, but I didn't. This is the end game of that trick, kind of thing. But when you're working on a comic, even a graphic novel like what I'm doing, there's one focus and one focus only. And that's more like a street magician coming up to you, taking out a deck of cards and performing a trick, not on a stage in front of you, but in your own hands. Okay. So like I said, take that one philosophical thought, sit down with it, make sure it is the one that you really want to tell. I mean, you're probably going to end up listing like 10, 20, 30 of them, and you've got to pick one. That's not going to be easy. But once you have done it, you then need to think to yourself, what kind of character embodies that philosophical thought? And then you'll be well on your way.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Interesting way to approach it, and it makes sense. I don't know that I've tried to sit down and think of that kind of thing, and I feel like it hasn't worked because it hasn't come in the form of like, I just have this burning thing I need to talk about through comic form, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like that's how it happens a lot of times. And it just kind of spills over into it, you know, and that's like a, you know, a wishy-washy way of approaching things, but I feel like that's how it would be for me, because there's been times where I'm like, okay, I'm passionate about a lot of philosophical things. I almost feel like that's the way I kind of am. I'm almost like a modern, you know, not like, I'm not trying to say I'm like a philosopher, but like that's the way my brain thinks. Like, I get into that kind of stuff. So I've actually sat down and wrote down like different things that are important to me, and it's a weird way of approaching it for me. But
I can
then
understand that.
you brought up the point of like, okay, you take that and you try to think of the character that embodies that, and that's an interesting way to think about it. Is that how you approached Lady Satan, or is there other stories that you're working on that is more of that approach? Or
yeah, I would definitely say that with Lady Satan, I took that approach because, like I said, one of those first initial thoughts was, what kind of a person calls themselves Lady Satan? Like, you know, what's going through their head? What have they experienced? So it's kind of a similar thing. And, you know, I do have other characters that, you know, they have started out with some sort of thought, or they've started out with a line of dialogue. Like I've been working on a character of mine recently called John Coffin. And I really didn't know what to do. I knew what kind of story I wanted to tell. And I knew a little bit about the character because I'd taken that time to think about it, but nothing really grew from that. So I left him alone for so long. And it's literally been in the past 2 or 3 weeks that, you know, I've had these little thoughts that kind of pop in my head. And, you know, like one of the thoughts I was having at the time of this kind of like all coming up was, there's lots of stuff that we go through in life, and some of it we find very easy to move on from, but there's other stuff that we don't, and we need to. That's what's healthy to do, especially mentally healthy. So what happens like when you've got a character that isn't ready to move on? There's something that kind of like keeps them there, emotionally or psychologically, something that's keeping them almost chained to like one place. And I just imagine this little scenario where it's like, okay, there's going to be like these two characters and one of them cannot move on, but maybe they want to, and that's like what's tearing them apart inside. And I just thought of this line of dialogue where there would be this other character saying to whoever this character, which ended up being John Coffin, they would just say like, moving on doesn't mean that you're giving up or you're letting someone down. It just means you want to stop torturing yourself, and that's okay. And just that little bit of dialogue, that's a thought, that's a philosophical take on something. And from there I was like, shit, that John Coffin character that I had, that really suits him. From what I know of him, that really suits him. So sometimes it is the philosophical thought first, and other times it's you just got enough and you need something to push it over the edge, because it's very easy to sit there and go, okay, I've got a character, let's think of a character, and then you put a character together. But having a character that has a story, like a really solid story, that's a numbers game. You've literally got to create just several characters over and over and over, make them different, make them special to you. Don't worry about whether they're the same kind of character. Like first book I worked on, Jericho, it was so easy for me to sit there and go, she's kind of like the Hulk mixed with Tony Stark. And it's like, so if I had taken that approach of, I can't do that because that's just taking two things and going, there you go, the book would never have happened. But because I took that approach of like, so fucking what? Like, you've blended two characters. This is still its own character just because they share similarities. It reminds me of this. I was talking to this guy once who, like, he had never written anything before, and he really wanted to be a writer. And he kind of had that cockiness to him where he was like, everything I write is going to be fucking amazing. It's like everything's a magnus opus. It's going to be awesome. And he was having trouble with a story idea. And he was talking to me about it going, this is what I want to do with it. But the thing is, that would lead to this character dying. And like, that's been done before. And I was like, yeah, do you know why it's been done before? People fucking die. It sucks, but it's true. Every 30 seconds, someone around the world is committing suicide. Just because it's been done before doesn't mean you can't do it. You're getting in your own way. Get out of it.
I'm not going to die because that's been done before, so I'm done with that.
Yeah, if that's how shit works, me and you are immortal, man. And that's cool. All of a sudden, we're Highlander. I'm down with this.
Right. Yeah. Let's see. There was one thing I wanted to jump on that you said, and it was you were talking about like the fact that you had two characters that were similar to something. And one thing I always think of you when I think about this idea of stealing. You have like a pretty cool or borrowing and steal. What's that quote you say usually? I love that.
Steal, don't borrow.
Yeah,
it's okay to steal from other stories. It's okay to steal from other mediums. This is fine, because when you steal something, you make it your own. When you borrow something, you're just taking something of someone else's and you're keeping it the same. Don't borrow, steal. Steal like a madman. Steal like an artist.
Totally. And I totally agree with that. So we have some more questions. We got Mr.
Bring the questions on. I'm down for this. I like questions.
Totally. We got Brian in
CB.
the chat. How you doing, man?
Hello, good sir. How the devil art thou?
Good. A friend of both of us. Question for both of you. When promoting your brand and comics, is there any newer social media that you guys are using to promote your stuff? And if so, how is it going so far?
Well, I tried Parlay, however it's
Parlor, it's
pronounced.
Parlor, I think, right?
Yeah, Parlor. And you know that social media would have been really good if it worked. You know, the amount of times like I've gone to post something, like I want to be able to post like some of the art I work on, and for some reason it's like, nah, don't want to do that. It's very picky and choosy. So I got to that point where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to leave it over there. If someone follows me, great. You know, that's great. Apart from that, you know, I've recently jumped on Twitter reluctantly as well. I really didn't want to be a part of Twitter, but I did it anyway. And I have to say, it's been one of the best tools that I've been using. That and YouTube, really. I think those two are the best ones because they seem to be one of the only two social medias, like all social medias suppress certain posts and stuff, which sucks, and they should fucking stop if you ask me. But YouTube and Twitter seem to do it less than anyone else. You know, when I post a link to the Indiegogo campaign on Twitter, it shows all my followers. Whereas when I post it on Facebook, they go, oh, he's trying to promote something. Better suppress that and make sure as little people see it as possible. I go onto YouTube. I could do a writing video and at the beginning of it, just say, hey, guys, you know, real quick, check out the link in the description box down below. Go check out the Lady Satan campaign. Doesn't make any difference because it's a subject matter that people want to learn about. You get all those views come in, and you know the people that want to stick around, they stick around, they subscribe to your channel, and they let you know very quickly if they're interested in your book. There's no beating around the bush on social media like or a platform like YouTube. When people like something, they will tell you, and that's fucking great. So yeah, I'd say CB, I'd say stick with what's already out there, man, because a lot of the newer stuff that I've been trying, just it either doesn't work or it's a pale imitation.
Yeah, well, I think you're right for the most part. There's one place where I would add something is that you know, TikTok is amazing, and I don't know if you know. I think a lot of people kind of disregard that one. It seems like it's for kids, but like first of all, it's really fun. It's just fun to go
Yeah.
on there.
Yeah.
But second of all, I've seen some of my friends do amazing. I'm looking right here at Kim Holm. I don't know if
Oh yeah, Kim.
he's been on the show a bunch of times.
Yeah, dig that
And
guy.
let's see, he's got he only has 356,000 followers on.
Only.
You know, me and Clay have been fighting for 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 on YouTube, like 356,000 followers on
That's
TikTok.
fucking beautiful, that.
And he just posts like a drawing a day. I mean, he does some really cool stuff now, but what got him there was just splattering ink on paper and creating a monster out of it every day. And
Nice.
and it's amazing. And I have another friend who's been on the show, another couple people who, you know, and I see them. Actually, I was talking about Aaron earlier. I don't know how well his thing is doing yet, but I've seen him posting on there. I haven't been consistent with it, so mine's just grown a little bit. But like, you know, if you're consistent with it, and I mean, first of all, any social media you work at, you know,
Yeah.
it will work.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But you know, and the thing is you have to look at yourself and say, like, do I have the bandwidth to do another social media? You know, and
Yeah.
you know, we're making comics. It's hard to do that, you know. But if
exactly.
I don't know, I'd say give TikTok a shot. There's more opportunity probably on there than any other social media right now.
Yeah.
It's just got that fire behind it right now, and I think it's worth jumping on that train for a while and trying really hard to at least post something at least once a day, you know, if you can. And it's not hard actually to make those TikToks and stuff. The thing is with any social media that has anything to it, you'll also get sucked in by the feed because there's a lot of funny stuff. Instagram, I just finally got back on Instagram. Don't tell Instagram because they'll probably take me off if they find out. But for somehow I was able to get back on there. And I'm sucked into the feed. Like I spend so much time scrolling, but I really miss it because I that's one of my favorite things that I couldn't do anymore was scroll on Instagram and get inspiration. And I don't know. So I definitely recommend TikTok, especially. You're already doing the Twitter thing, Brian.
Yeah.
We know that, and the YouTube thing too. Like I'd say, continue hitting that. I mean, I know it's hard, but I think last I saw you were, but I haven't been even focusing on my YouTube that much lately. So, but yeah, I mean, kind of how that all goes, man. So, thanks for the question.
Yeah, that's a cool question. I mean, like, just to add to it real quickly, I'd
Yeah,
also say, like, it's not necessarily like which social media you use. It's about using the best one for you.
Totally.
Focus on one, master that, and then incorporate another one.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. Like, yeah, and I know that just from conversations with Brian that you have focused on Twitter a lot, and it's worked out. So maybe it's time to try another one, or focus again even more on your YouTube or something. But I think it works. You just gotta. It's not the be all and end all, but at the same time, Rust just had a really strong campaign, and it didn't fund the first day. It took pretty much the whole campaign to fund.
Yeah.
But he did it, and why did he do it? He was on YouTube like crazy, and that's what he's doing right now. In fact, you should check out on Indiegogo, Lady Satan, and I'll put the link in again. So we got another. While I'm putting that link in, we got another question. I'll let you tackle this here.
Okay. So Zachary says, "What's your advice on writing a story that you're very passionate about, but is a touching subject that a wide audience might not enjoy, e.g., lots of violence or gore, dark humor? It's upsetting." I love this question because this is so in my wheelhouse, man. Right. Okay. You're gonna have to excuse me if I'm being a bit crass or blunt, but that's just how I am sometimes. The first thing you have to do is not give a fuck about what anyone else thinks. Right. Just let that go, because at the end of the day, no matter what story you write, there's going to be people that like it, there's going to be people that don't like it, and there's going to be people who are offended by it. That's the main thing. Don't be scared of any of that stuff. Don't be scared about reactions to it. Like I've had a fair few people who've got in touch with me, and they're like, "You sick son of a bitch," and just at the end of the day. Hey, like it was shortly after I finished writing Lady Satan, because I've been kind of promoting it during the writing process. I even got someone who like sent me a death threat because they were offended by the title. Wow. Just the title, right? Let go of that stuff. No, do not worry about it. Being passionate about it is fucking great. That's the best motivator in the world. And look, you've got to kind of be fearless a little bit. Like, it is going to be scary, don't get me wrong, especially if it's your first time like kind of diving into this stuff. It is going to be scary because what you're doing is you're wearing your heart on your sleeve. Okay, except this time the sleeve is now paper or an ebook, however you want to get it out there. Okay, and you're going to feel like you're alone when you want to talk about this stuff and when you want to put it down into a story, but you will be amazed, absolutely amazed, how many people out there want to hear your story. They want to read your story. Not everyone, of course. No one can write a book that everyone loves. That's impossible. Absolutely impossible. But you are going to meet people who are going to thank you for the work that you do because you were brave enough to sit there and say, I'm going to do it regardless. Look, with Lady Satan, I plan on doing another 4 books. And that really does all depend on how well this Indiegogo goes. You know, if it funds really well and we go into stretch goals and stuff, then that tells me that people want to have more of this stuff, which is absolutely great. Then again, it might only just fund, which puts me in a very difficult position of, do I go to the second book or not? But I've still planned it out as far ahead as I could, knew what the definitive ending was, and I did research for each one of those books. And the fourth one was the hardest one because it deals with the subject of suicide in a very different way, but it still deals with suicide. And part of that research, I spent days reading actual suicide notes to help with that research because I didn't want to hold back. Your audience will know when you're holding back, so don't. Do not hold back one little bit. Just make it, at the end of the day, you want your audience to read it. Of course you do. And you want them to enjoy it. You want them to come back and go, please, sir, can I have some more? But that's going to mean nothing if it isn't the story you want to tell. Right? You've got to get to the end of that book. Okay. And you got to think to yourself, you got to know that the work you put into that book made you say, I'm proud of this. Even if everyone in the world fucking hates it, I'm proud of this. And that's what matters first and foremost, because if you're proud of it and you've done it the way that you want to do it, then trust me, others will absolutely love what you do. It's going to be hard finding them at first, but you will find them. And when you do, you're going to be so overwhelmed by it. Don't be scared. Do it the way you want to do it. Accept no substitutes. Do not compromise. Tell the story you want to tell. Tell it the way you want to tell it as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned something about what your audience will appreciate and won't. Your audience will appreciate what you write from this place, like of being passionate and not holding back. Like if you aren't doing that, you're actually, whatever audience you may be connecting with isn't even necessarily like your audience. Like you want to connect with the people who are passionate the way you are. There's a book I can think of, you know, when he said, you know, nobody can write a book that everyone will love. You know, I was thinking, okay, let's see if he's right about that. And I thought, okay, I think there's a book that maybe you could say everyone loves, and it was written by a lady named J.K. Rowling. And I love that book. I think I've read them all and I've watched the movies, but there's somebody else in this video, I'm not sure who isn't such a fan of that book.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It just doesn't speak to me. That book just doesn't speak to me, and that's okay. That's absolutely fine. It comes back to that whole thing of giving yourself permission. You don't need anyone else to give you that permission. You just need you to give yourself that permission. It's so freeing and it's so nice. And trust me, look, I've worked on stuff that I felt the same way. No one's going to like this. It's going to upset people horribly. And then people came back going, oh my God, this was beautiful. I didn't realize that I wanted this in my life. It kind of reminds me of when I used to own rats. Okay, I absolutely love rats. I think they're wonderful animals. And I had a pair of rats called April and Cambria. And if I went out down to the store, I put them on my shoulder. They would sit in my hood or whatever. They were quite happy. And every time I did it, I thought, okay, if I walk past someone who's an old age pensioner, they're going to be like, a rat kind of thing. And like the kids will probably be like, that's stupid. You know, but they're not going to think too much of it. And it was always the other way around. The kids would be like, oh my God, don't go near the weird man with rats. And then an old lady would come along and go, oh, they're awesome. Can I play with them? You know, you can't predict how people are going to react to anything you do. I used to be in a heavy metal band. I used to be the frontman of a heavy metal band called Abuse. And, you know, we did a show once and we did this new song. And, you know, I thought people are going to love this song. Most of them did. But one person in that audience that night hated it so much, they physically assaulted me. because they hated it that much. You cannot predict it, but you can't hold back just in case it's going to upset someone. People get upset over things. And you know what? When it comes to books, a lot of the time when people get upset, it's because they've brought their own baggage to the book. And there's nothing you can do about that. But don't let someone else control your art. It's yours for a reason. And the reason you create it is because you have a voice and you have something to say. And there are people out there who want to hear that. There are people out there that don't, who will try and silence you. And the best, right, you have the best tool. Okay, this tool is absolutely free. Okay, I'm not going to charge you for this. All right. This is the greatest tool for those people. When you meet those people who are like, I hate you because you made this book and it upset me and you should be ashamed and disgusted with yourself. Best tool in the world. One of these. Let them know that you've got one and you know how to use it and that you're not scared to use the backup one either. Okay. That's the best way to do it. Make the book you want to make. And you said that it could be upsetting, it could be disturbing, dark, violent, gory. Sold.
Yeah, you have one fan.
Right. Take my money that I do not have. I will get my best crayons out and counterfeit you some right fucking now. Because you're speaking my language.
Totally. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, it's and the thing is too is like you can't I mean, I struggle with this too a little bit, but like the thing is something that I've heard people say before is that writing stories it's about telling the truth. Like, you need to tell the truth in your stories or else people aren't going to connect with it. And whatever that truth is for you, you need to tell that, and if you're doing something else, like, what are you even doing? Like,
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Be honest with yourself, or be honest with and be honest with the audience, or you can lie to yourself and therefore lie to the audience. And people don't like being lied to.
Yeah.
Not whatsoever. Look, an author can sit down, write a graphic novel, write a comic book, and I could disagree with them on everything, but at least they've had the respect for me as a reader and for all the other readers to say, look, you might not like what I'm going to say, but I'm saying it. And I would much rather have that than, someone who's not going to be honest with themselves and not be honest with the reader. Like I said, it's about respect for yourself and respect for your audience.
Totally.
Oh, I like these questions. This is great. Bring them on, people.
Ryan says, Mr. Lucifer, may ask. Wow, I like that. How to write a good villain character that doesn't always make "it's all happened according to my plan" as an excuse for a bad event that happened to the main protagonist.
Sorry, let me read that again. Sorry. Okay, I think I get what you mean. Like basically, it comes down to how do you write a good villain?
Yeah,
right. That seems to be the core of this question.
How do you write not Skeletor? Which I like as a villain, anyways. But hey,
right. What one thing you need to do with a villain is make him sympathetic. Okay, that is a big key to writing a good villain. Give the villain a point of view that you may disagree with, but there's something about their point of view where you go, shit, I hate to admit it, but I agree with them. A good villain should make your reader play devil's advocate in their own head. Okay, it's I think a good example that I can give this, like I wrote a novella like a while back and it wasn't very good. Don't go looking for it. Okay, it's called Svengali, and it was a kind of like a science fiction thriller kind of thing. And you've got this bad guy who's going out and he's assaulting and causing a lot of harm to what's in the book known as robosexual couples, which are couples that one of them's a robot, one of them's a human kind of thing. And of course, they're considered a minority in the book and everything. So, you know, this character gets arrested. Turns out that it's a robot themselves, and they've got this synthetic skin. And they're sat in a jail cell, just peeling off parts of their skin because they're bored. They're like, okay, I just need to kill some time. And you know, he's got these people on the outside of this prison cell that he's in saying like, how can you do this to, like, you know, these minorities? What makes you think that it's okay to attack a minority? And he's like, well, let me ask you the same question, because I'm the only one in the jail cell. And that was something that made the reader go, yeah, shit, kind of got a point there. I don't want you to have a point, but you kind of do. That's where like really good villains come from. Look at Thanos in like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What he's doing is shit. It's not very good. That man didn't just, bear in mind, he snapped his fingers. He killed half of all life in the universe. That includes dogs. I don't like anyone who kills dogs. But it was an needs, an end to a need. You know, that there was something bigger behind it, where it's like, yeah, I get it. I actually agree with you that we should do something that's gonna like end like poverty and all this. Like, no one should go with an empty belly, kind of thing. It's just your fucking method's really flawed. You know, so that's the best way to like approach your villains. Make them sympathetic, make them so that they cause the reader to go, oh shit, devil's advocate here, I don't like this, but I'm standing up for the bad guy. Kind of thing. And give them a cause that is understandable, that you can go, yeah, I agree with that cause, it's just your method that I don't agree with.
Yeah, it's Thanos is a great example, because most people have seen that, and he does. That's why people, like, you know, thought he was a good villain. You know,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
totally like, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a problem, you know, and we need to figure out a solution. But dang, that solution's kind of harsh, dude.
well, like I said earlier about, like, you know, there are people out there, they go through their shit and they're like, oh man, no one's listening to me, and I just need someone to listen. They don't have to agree with me, they just have to listen to me. I need to know that I can say what's on my mind without being like persecuted or whatever. And they think, right, how do I solve this problem? Some people sit there and go, you know what, I could make a comic book, I could start a band, I could take the dog for a walk, I could become a comedian or a ballet dancer or whatever. And other people are trying to solve that same problem, but their method is, I'll pick up a gun and I will go shoot someone or shoot lots of people. I don't like their method, but I get where they're coming from. They want that internal pain to end. So think about it like that. Like I said, they've got an internal struggle of some sort. It's just their method for solving it isn't the best one to go down, but it's what they believe is their only option.
Yeah, it's so true. It's a good point.
A good film to reference for that is a movie called Higher Learning, which has got Ice Cube in it.
Since it came out.
Yeah, and Michael Rappaport's character in that. It's the same thing. He believes there's only one option, and it's to join this like white supremacist group and then go to the top of a bell tower and start shooting people. And he just doesn't realize that's not the only option he had. It was just the only one that he could see. So you want to learn how to write a good film? Go watch that movie. Go watch Infinity War. And there you go. You've got your template right there.
Totally. All right, we got a slight shade on the question that was asked before by Miguel. I agree about not holding back to an extent. My question would be, how do you not hold back and still remain tasteful with difficult subject matter?
Ooh, that's interesting. I like that. I like the fact that we're getting back on this subject matter as well, man. Some things, look, if you worry too much about being tasteful, you know, being distasteful can be seen as a bad thing, right? But the opposite is also true. Being overly tasteful. It's about finding that balance. And sometimes there are situations or subject matters that you're discussing in a story where your only option is to be that little bit distasteful. Think about this. There's lots of stories out there that have violence in them, right? Or they have sexual assault, for want of a better phrasing. And you think to yourself, oh no, need to deal with that tastefully. Let's not show it to people. Let's turn the camera in the opposite direction. And I understand why people do that. Sometimes that's the best method. But if the point of your story is to say to people, you see this, it's ugly and it's disgusting and it's bad, the best way to do that is to be distasteful and go, see for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, it's all personal opinion at the end of the day. I can see something in a comic book and think, wow, that's shocking and everything. But, you know, it's brought the point home to me. It's made me realize it. And someone else will see it and think, oh, God, no, that was way too over the top. That was very distasteful. You like I said, it comes back to that thing of you can't make everyone happy. So you've got to do what you believe is right, even if others believe that it's distasteful. Bear in mind, there are lots of people out there in this world today who think Bambi is an amazing movie and that there is nothing in there that could offend anyone. But the person sat next to them is thinking that movie is trash and it's evil because they killed Bambi's mum right at the fucking beginning. You know, it's like I said, it's all personal.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, taste is you know, subjective. And you know, I'm trying to think of like an example where distasteful somebody went too far, but I don't know that there is. I mean, I think it's when you're doing it for fun kind of thing. I don't know, like there's because there is this thing like what's the one with the movie Hobo with a Shotgun or something?
Love that movie.
So like to me, I can't do that. Like I got to the point where he walked on that bus and I'm like, I'm done. I'm not watching this anymore.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I was offended, it's because I just can't subject myself to that.
everyone has their limits. Yeah. And this is one of the beautiful things about art. It challenges you. I can't remember the guy who said it, but I'm so behind him when he said this. Art should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comforted. That's what makes it great. Bear in mind, a lot of the art that people now today look at and go, oh my God, this is a masterpiece. When it first came out, was considered distasteful as fuck. Okay, so let me give you another example on why sometimes it's really good to be distasteful. If I got in a time machine now and went back to, say, middle of the 1950s, maybe closer to the 1960s in the UK, right? And I went up to people, started having a conversation with them. Maybe it was at a local bar or a supermarket or whatever. And maybe they start going, yeah, but you know what? There's these people out there and they're called gays. All right. Oh, don't like that. Well, they would consider it very distasteful if I turned around and went, well, I think you're a dick. I think it's okay to be gay. I think that's absolutely fine. I don't see any problem with it. The times change, don't they? And so does taste. Bear in mind, like back in the 80s, half the language that's coming out of my mouth now would have been considered so incredibly obscene. Now, some of that language is used as a verb. I go to my doctors and say, hey, there's something wrong with me. They give me a checkup and they go, right, your results are in, you're fucked. Right? That's just how it goes because times change. Times change. Well, taste changes.
That's also the UK. I don't know if they'd say
that. When we use a lot worse language than that, you know. But like Miguel, like you bring up such a great point, and it's just a case of I respectfully disagree. Like your opinion is absolutely valid, and that works for you. It just doesn't work for everyone, you know? But good for you for saying something about it, man. That's the most important thing. The conversation is happening. And, you know, you've put me in a position where I was like, well, hold on, I have to think about this for a second. You know? And that's good. That's really good. So thank you so much for bringing that up.
Yeah, totally. And you know what I'm learning, and to kind of go with that too, is like uh we should never make decisions based on what other people are
Yeah,
going to think about them, say
yeah,
about them,
absolutely.
do because of them. We need to make decisions based on exactly what is true to us, you
Yeah,
know. And so really, it's again, taste is subjective.
yeah,
Like to Foy's point earlier, you know, there was a time where there was a man who played a guitar and shook his hips, and that was distasteful to the whole country.
yeah,
And
yeah,
his name is
exactly.
Elvis, and that's
Yeah,
not so to say. You know, now we
yeah,
got TikTok where little girls are shaking their hips. So like,
yeah. Exactly. It reminds me of a line from the movie 8 mm, where I think it's Joaquin Phoenix's character, Max California, who says one person sees a video like this and they throw up. Another person sees it and they fall in love.
mm,
You know, it's each to their own. Each to their own at the end of the day.
totally. So we have another question.
Oh,
Mamochu, uh, do you two ever encounter a moment of imposter syndrome when you're working on your stuff? Are we
thank
artists?
you, thank you so much for this
You could have just
question.
asked us, are you an artist?
My life is perpetually imposter syndrome. It's a continuing thing. I don't get 8 hours sleep. I get 8 hours of going, fuck, they're gonna figure me out in a minute. Shit, I need to hide. You know, like I get it, man. Like imposter syndrome is a bitch, absolute bitch. When it hits and it hits hard, oh, I would not wish that upon my worst enemy. But just remember, you're not alone. There are lots, like Marshall just said. There's another way of wording that question. Are you an artist of any kind? Because if
Yeah.
you are, then you've probably had imposter syndrome. And it's kind of part of the process, to be honest with you. Like I saw this YouTube video where this guy was talking about like what to do if you're out and about and someone approaches you with a knife, right? And the first thing he said is you're probably going to be scared shitless. You're going to feel butterflies in your stomach. Don't worry about that. That's part of the process. Because every fight that guy had, it always started with him having butterflies in his stomach, him being scared. It's a very similar thing. When you start a project, you're going to have that voice in your head that says you're a fraud, you're a fake. People are going to find you out, and when they do, you're going to be treated like Frankenstein's monster. They're going to come with the pitchforks and the torches and all that. It's all part of the process. It's okay. It's healthy. Just do what you can to ignore that imposter syndrome. Not too much, but just enough so you go, okay, I can hear it. I can't quite make out what it's saying, and then just move on from there. Like a lot of this stuff, you've just got to be brave as possible, brave as you possibly can be, and just say, I'm doing it. Regardless of the results, I'm doing it.
Yeah. Creating something new is absolutely a courageous act, especially
Yeah.
if it's your first time or first few times.
Yeah.
I like that you said that, be brave. That's a good point.
Yeah, because I mean, like, there's nothing scarier than a blank page, man. Trust
Mm,
me, I'm someone who's had to talk in front of lots of people. I've had to perform music in front of lots of people. That shit's scary, but
mm.
nothing is ever going to be as scary as approaching a blank page.
Yeah, totally. I think we have some more questions. We got one question. This is like probably the deepest question, and if you don't mind, I'm gonna take this one on real quick, and this
Okay.
one is pretty good. Will Lucifer adopt? And I would say that for about 20 pounds plus shipping and tax, yes, he will adopt you.
Oh, absolutely. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. It was absolutely great having you on the show the other day. Of course I'll adopt you. Absolutely. Just realize I am a package deal. I do come with a sock puppet. which you will learn about one day. And this puppet has an affinity for hammers. If you can put up with him, then absolutely. How would you feel about having to change like your name on Gods and Gears from Ryan Winter, Ryan Storm? Oh, that's got a ring to it.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. So yes, absolutely. Send me the papers. I'll get to it, man. Absolutely.
Definitely. And yeah, again, if you would like to have Lucifer adopt you as well, then check out this link that I'm posting right now. If it goes through. Oh, there it is. Okay. So Nathan says Skeletor is the man.
Rock the fuck on.
Thanos is the perfect example. I agree. Definitely a good example. Let's see. Do we have any more questions? Question. I see a queue.
If you don't have questions, I'll take compliments as well. And bribes.
Oh, there's compliments in here. I just haven't been. I don't want your ego to get too big.
No, that's a good thing. Don't ever pander to my ego. My ego's a prick. Leave him out of this.
Zachary says, in your opinion, what makes a monster or killer scary?
Great question, because it means I get to use a phrase that I don't get to use too often. But there is a saying here in the UK. You guys might have it in the US as well. And it's very simple. Monsters don't get close to children. Nice old men do. And that encompasses everything that I believe makes a monster or killer scary. It's the fact that it could be any one of us. It's all about, like I said, the thought process, your opinion of what your options are when life gets a bit tough, and seeing that it really could be any one of us. There's a guy that I'm sure a lot of you have heard his name, Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, who once brought up the fact that everyone today, if they were asked, like, could you be one of the Nazis at the concentration camp? Everyone goes, no. But that's because they're not putting themselves in the shoes of the people who were. Any one of us could have been that person. That's the scariest fucking thing of all.
Yeah, totally. Now we're getting deep.
Good.
Fogbreaker Studios, also known as Jason Alexander of the Vault fame.
I'm gonna have to check out those books later on, man.
Check out the link in the description. Minicomicbundles.com.
They're looking really dope.
Yeah, I mean, it's so cool. As I see these pictures come through online, and then when I get them, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Let's see. And he says, if you want to write about something, you can't be afraid of diving all the way into it. And I like that it's coming from Jason, because I know you totally dive all the way into it with your writing.
Oh yeah, good man.
Miguel likes what we were talking about, specifically you, which is awesome.
Awesome, Miguel. Rock on, man. You are officially awesome. Anyone tells you otherwise, send them my way. I'll be more than happy to correct them.
Cool. So yeah, man. I think we've covered a lot of cool things here that can be helpful. Once again, let's dive into this real quick. And if you guys have any last questions after we're done going through this a little bit, let us know, and we'll try to hit them up. Let's see. So once again, we didn't go over kind of the rewards and stuff of this awesome book.
Oh yes, I like this because originally the book was just going to be a hardcover book. And then I realized like how much you guys in the US would be paying for shipping for a hardcover book. And I thought, I need to give you guys an option. So there's a soft cover book. No, man, I get it. Because when I get a book off Indiegogo from the US, I'm like, how much do I have to pay? Okay, I'll do it reluctantly, but I'm doing it. So I put in the soft cover option as well, and the hardcover is limited to 50. However, if there's a lot of people saying, "Hell yeah, we want the hardcover," then I will up that limit. Obviously, there's also a digital edition that's been added for some of you guys out there who maybe want the book, but even the soft cover, the pricing of the shipping's too much. So the hardcover is a perk you can get on its own. Same with the digital edition. Most of the other perks, they come with the softcover edition, including a unisex t-shirt, which is limited to 10 pieces. And you've also got a 2 softcover option. So you can get 2 copies of the book, save a bit of money on the postage and everything. So you might want to go in with a friend and, split the difference. And there's also a print set bundle that includes an exclusive A3 poster, which I'm very proud of. I really like that poster. And you've got 2 different prints that you get in there, but one of the prints, there's 2 variations. There's a safe for work version and a not safe for work version. Those prints are being colored at the moment by a guy called Catharsis. He is amazing at coloring. He's fairly new to the scene, but his work is incredible. So he's coloring those for me, and it'll probably be like one of the only times you see Lady Satan in color, because most of the time it will be in black and white. And just to add insult to injury, right? Obviously, I'm writing this book. I'm illustrating this book. I'm doing the best I can with the lettering. I got a guy called John Wakefield doing the editorial duties. He's doing a fantastic job. Every time I miss a trick, he picks me up on it straight away. It's like, dude, you need to fix this. And he does such a great job. And on top of that, there's a foreword that is being written by Robert Geronimo, the guy behind Wirehead and Blood Realm.
Sweet. That's awesome.
And of course, there will be stretch goals and stuff. I've only shown off 2 small stretch goals. But once we've unlocked 1 stretch goal, then I'll start showing you guys some more. And I'm already looking at like some more perks that can be done, because a lot of people have been coming to me saying, "Damn, the music on that trailer, that is dope." And I'm like, "Oh, cheers," because that was my fault. I'm guilty for that one. So soon I'm going to actually make it so that you can download that song for absolutely free from my website, and hopefully there'll be a nice big chunky preview of the book on the way as well.
Nice. Sweet. Man, I can't wait. It's been a long time coming.
Hasn't it just?
Yep. Cool beans. All right. Just refreshing here just to see. Cool. So you got 51 days left.
Yes.
And I think, I know it's kind of a long ways away, but it's funny how these Indiegogos happen and stuff. And I think you'll get a lot of backers throughout and towards the end. But, everybody, like, I would just say, like, I mean, you're getting some good writing and some really, like, good art. Like, you really, I know you take your time and really put your everything into it. And yeah, I don't know. This is like was it Ryan who said he said basically, you're just a professional who hasn't been discovered yet or something to that effect.
Yeah.
It's true. For sure.
Yeah, I put blood, sweat, tears, and everything into this book, man. I'm not doing this by halves. You're getting all or nothing. Deal with it. And look, guys, like maybe you're like, hey, this book isn't for me, right? That's cool. But you might know someone who this book is for. So feel free to share the campaign on your social media platforms. Let people know that it exists. This 130 plus pages of outlaw comic. That's not something you see every day,
It's true. It's true. You say it's a vigilante, and we had this conversation before, and I to me, like, and I know this wasn't where it originated for you, but then I remember you were like, huh, that's interesting that you say that, though. To me, this is like your Batman almost. And I like how you say, like, that it's like, what type of person goes around calling themselves Lady Satan? Like, that is an interesting question, and it's the same question could be said about Batman. And
absolutely.
Where Batman does go deep, like, I feel like you're diving like deeper into the reality of these kind of things and the psychology even, you know.
Yeah, definitely digging that little bit deeper with the psychology, like exploring post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorder, depression, obviously as well. And another factor for Lucille is that she has PGAD, which stands for persistent genital arousal disorder, which is a very rare disorder to have, but it does exist. I've done a little bit of poetic license with it, where I've made it that whenever she feels justified in killing a criminal, she has this very violent, painful orgasm that's debilitating. So, like, you know, it's just another edge to her. I've been working on a scene recently that involves a flashback to like a part of her recovery after like surviving this snuff film. And that's been really nice. Not just getting into like her psyche, but getting into the psyche of the people around her who are trying to help her just across 2 pages. You know, and that's really fun. So, like I said, this is a dark, character-driven story. There's a lot of focus on the character, who she is, what makes her who she is. Like, this has got layers. This book's like an onion. You're going to be peeling back layers, and if I've done my job right, by the end of it, you will be crying. Whether that's a good thing or not, I'll leave that in your capable hands to decide.
Well, thank you. Well, I'll be you know, one thing I want actually to experience with a comic is that, you know, that kind of emotional response that still to this day I haven't quite had, and I've had it with other types of stories, TV shows, movies, books, you know, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure there's plenty of comics out there that can do that, but you know, the first one who does that for me, you know, I'm gonna say thank you and send them a candy bar or something.
Awesome. I'll give you my address later.
Yeah, totally. So, with that being said, tell everybody, obviously, you know, go check out the Indiegogo, but where else can they find you, man?
You can find me at luciferstorm.com. You can go to lady-satan.com. You can go to the dark, deep corners of most bars and probably find me there. But if you look for either Lucifer Storm or the Lucifer Storm, because there is only one, right? Don't accept any substitutes. Then search for me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, and you will probably find me there eventually.
Nice. Awesome. And you guys know where to find me, donkeyjawprojects.com. There's links in the description, you'll find them. But if you're interested in seeing what else I'm going to be doing, I'm also starting a music YouTube channel with a friend of mine. So check out that link. There's no videos. I think Saturday will be the first video. We'll do a live stream. But, you know, if you're interested in the extra stuff that I'm doing, that's where to find me. So. Yeah, other than that, man, thank you everybody for all the awesome questions and hanging out with us here. Like, you guys have been
cool,
awesome,
man.
Yeah, totally. And everybody watching on the replay, thank you. Feel free to throw some questions or anything in the comments and stuff. And other than that, you know, thank you, Fway, and we'll
Anytime, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, you're always welcome to come on. Always.
Yeah, same with you, man. You're always welcome to come on my channel. You just got to put up with Jeremy.
Yeah, well, that's reasons why I haven't been on there for a while.
yeah, I thought that might be the case.
All right, guys. Thank you, everybody, again, and we will talk to you next time.